Booga booga.
It's been said that today's cinema is rife with spoon-feeding audiences information rather than letting information be inferred or simply organically implied within the framework of a story. I don't know if I necessarily agree that current cinema is filled with it, at least not any more than usual, but it is nevertheless a storytelling technique that you and any writer should steer clear of, regardless of medium. How do you combat this pitfall? Show, don't tell. You've probably heard of, if not used, this phrase yourself. Simply put, show don't tell is the art of allowing your audience to experience the story through actions, senses, and feelings, rather than through exposition or overt statements. It's about painting a picture in the mind of the reader or viewer, letting them draw their own conclusions. Over time, this technique has evolved and found its place in modern media, from books to films and even video games. It's a timeless tool that, when used effectively, can elevate your storytelling to new heights. One of the clearest modern examples comes from the Star Wars Andor series. Say what you will about the show, hand-holding isn't present. Take the introduction of Brasso in the intro episode. The entire interaction begins with Andor setting up a series of events that help create an alibi for Andor's whereabouts the night before. Andor lays out that the two of them passed out after a long night of drinking. Brasso asks one question of Andor.
You serious?
Yeah.
After a heavy sigh, Brasso starts adding to the story to make it sound more believable, even coming up with an explanation as to why Andor has the shiner on his face. To end this conversation, Brasso tells Andor that after whatever blows over, he needs to get back to work like everyone else, adding that Andor should tell his mom to turn on the heat because it's freezing in her home. At no point does either character make any explicit declaration about the relationship. Everything in the scene paints the picture, showing us that these two men know one another really well and that they trust one another. It's simply a favor being asked of a friend, and that's enough. The fact that it's a large favor and the audience knows why Andor needs an alibi makes Brasso's willingness to blindly go along with the charade a clear picture of the depth of the friendship. Their bond is deep in no small part due to the fact that the dialogue is deep. Juxtapose this to the scene from Ahsoka, wherein we're introduced, sort of, to live-action Ezra Bridger. In about 30 seconds, we're told what the relationship is between Ezra and Sabine. The key word here is told. Bridger tells Sabine that they've 1. Been through a lot, 2. They've grown up together, 3. That they've served in the rebellion, and 4. That they're like family, siblings even. In a very superficial sense, you could say that this was a quick and economical way of catching people up with their backstories. However, film, television, books, and games often don't require such ham-fisted approaches to exposition. You can easily use natural conversation and unfolding events to explain the ins and outs of character relationships, much like how Tony Gilroy did between Brasso and Andor. When you look at the Bridger recording, you have to admit that there isn't a good natural reason for this message to exist, at least not in its current form. You see, Ezra doesn't need to explain their background and relationship to Sabine. She was there, she knows it. It exists primarily to give information to the audience who may not be familiar with the kids' animated shows that came prior. While I won't sing the praises of this series, there was plenty of information littered throughout the season that told us everything we needed to know about these characters' relationships with one another. We came to know that they were friends, that Sabine and Ezra served together in the rebellion, that Sabine did miss Ezra and that she wanted to rescue him. Every piece of information that was spoon-fed to the audience was given to us again throughout the series. Dave Filoni apparently felt that wasn't enough. The result is a clumsily written scene with background information shoved into the viewer's face. Instead of seeing love, compassion, and trust, we're told there's love, compassion, and trust. However, there is nuance to spoon-feeding and when it's necessary. You heard that right, spoon-feeding can actually work in a scene. Take, for instance, the 1993 adaptation of The Three Musketeers. Early on in the film, we're introduced to Rochefort, one of the main villains. As it becomes clear that he knows the eponymous heroes of the story, we're given an explanation as to how Rochefort specifically knows these men.
When was the last time we had the pleasure of his company?
I believe it was the day he was cast out of the Musketeers. Conduct on becoming a Musketeer. That was the charge, was it not?
It's easy to look at this and think the writers have just bludgeoned you over the head with exposition. However, the point of this scene, for the characters anyway, is to throw Rochefort's history in his face. He was disgraced and cast out of the Musketeers, so naturally that would include not only the beef the Three Musketeers have with Rochefort, but it would also include how they know one another. Interestingly, though, there is a scene that comes a little earlier in the movie that wonderfully implies knowledge of one another. While we're not given any details, it's clear that Rochefort knows the men the Cardinal is after. And it's not just that he knows them, there is a lot of violent anger focused on them. For aspiring writers, luckily there are practical steps you can take to help make sure you avoid hand-holding in your story. The first is focus on the senses. Describe what your characters see, hear, smell, touch, and taste. This brings the world of your story to life and makes it more immersive. The second is use dialogue and actions to reveal characters' traits and emotions. Instead of saying, "I'm angry," show the character's clenched fists, his reddened face, or the sharp tone in his voice. The third, be selective with details. Not everything needs to be shown, but the details you choose to highlight should be meaningful and contribute to the story. In other words, don't devote time to fluff. And number 4 is practice. Try rewriting scenes from your favorite books or movies, focusing on show don't tell, and see how it changes the impact of the story. Show don't tell is more than just a writing technique. It's a way to create a deeper connection with your audience. It allows them to experience the story firsthand, making it more engaging and memorable. So next time you sit down to write, regardless of what it's for, remember, show us the story, don't tell us about it. Now it's your turn. Take what you've learned today and apply it to your own writing. I'd love to hear how it goes, so leave a comment below with your thoughts or examples of how you've used show don't tell in your work. If you like this type of content, let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button.
Booga booga.